Hello everybody, this is our final EKG lecture. We're going to go into the electrode setup that is used in typical monitoring in a hospital setting. And then we're going to go through a full kind of 6 and 12 lead EKG. It's important to appreciate how these recordings are made, how these recordings are used clinically to guide medical care and make diagnoses. We, as physical therapists, normally do not interpret a 12-lead EKG, and it's considered an advanced skill, not a required skill for all PTs. So I want you to really appreciate how these recordings are made and the valuable information that is gained from them, but you will not be expected to interpret a 12-lead EKG. That's just on the front end so that you can sit back and enjoy this lecture a little bit more without panicking about what you will have to interpret. Hopefully this will help you enjoy it a little more. So this is the arrangement of the typical electrodes that are used when a patient is in the hospital and has a cardiac monitor. They typically use a 5-electrode system. I'll go back to the formal picture of this, but as you guys know, I think better when drawing. So I'm just going to draw this out because my cool kind of 3-dimensional picture leaves a little bit to interpret. All right, so this is the right side of the body. This is the left side of the body. And the 5-electrode system, you would place the white electrode up here. This is meant to be white. That's the inside. Over the kind of upper right-hand chest. The green electrode is down on the right lower chest. And this would be considered the right leg electrode. When this system was first designed, these electrodes were put on the leg. We've now kind of brought them together, and I'll illustrate in a moment how you can get the full picture of the heart with this arrangement. But we call this the right leg electrode, as it would have been historically all the way down at the end of the right leg. On the left arm, kind of the left upper chest, is where we have our black electrode. And then the left leg electrode is actually on the left lower part of the chest. They're also, I don't have a brown, shoot. They're limiting me here. This is meant to be brown. It's less pretty if I don't have an actual brown. There's typically a brown, which is the 5th electrode. And this is in what you will, by the end of this lecture, if you're already familiar with 12-lead EKG, this is in the 6th position. The reason they add the 5th electrode, it is used to better identify arrhythmias, especially things like bundle branch blocks. It's helpful to see pacemaker rhythm, and it really helps to identify those wide QRS complexes when someone is experiencing tachycardias. So it is an additional electrode that helps kind of clarify the image. So this 5-electrode system can create all of the leads necessary for the recording of the heart's electrical activity. This language will become more familiar to you in a minute, but this would be how we collect all of our limb leads. When we talk about limb leads, all of them can be obtained by this setup. In a hospital monitor, oftentimes this setup will be used with a 2-channel monitor, and you will see kind of 1 limb lead and 1 chest lead displayed simultaneously. That helps in the identification of rhythms. So with this setup, we can get all of our limb leads. This is pretty good at identifying rhythm abnormalities. It's fairly good at ST segment deviations, although that would need to be clarified with a full 12 lead. The arrangement of these electrodes, and the reason I drew it out, is it is important to know where these go because they fall off all the time. So when you're putting a gown on or a gait belt on, you just pull one of these off, and it's helpful to know where they go. on the back of the pack, the mobile pack that goes with the EKG or the electrode monitor, typically they'll have a guide of where the electrodes go, but there's also a really easy way to remember. If you think about sitting in a car, okay? Think about driving a car down like a nice sunny day and you put your arm into the window. Which arm is going to be in the window when you're driving the car? It's going to be your left, right? So your left side of your arm is sitting up on the window and the bright sun is shining and you end up burning your left arm. So the red is on the left side because you can think of that as the burning arm that is on the driver's side door. So smoke always rises above fire. So because smoke rises above fire, that's why you have the black electrode on the top left. Okay, so fire from the sun beating your left driver's side arm, smoke rises up to the top. So then the other side, you can say that the green is the grass growing on the ground, and the white is the snow that covers the grass in winter. And then brown can go anywhere. If that helps you remember, it's a nice little quick thing to put in your mind to remember where those electrodes go. So here is the more formalized view of that. You can see the white electrode is called RA for right arm. The green electrode is called RL for right leg. The red, burning from the window that you were driving in, is LL for left leg. And then obviously LA is for left arm. So Einthoven's triangle is a description of the recordings made to analyze the heart. And it's named after Willem Einthoven, who put electrodes on both arms and legs, and he manipulated the polarity of each lead to develop this triangle of polarity. What you can see here are 3 leads. And lead 1 is the graphical representation that can be found when you make the positive electrode the left arm and the negative electrode the right arm. Right, so for every lead, you have to get this information from that exploring and that reference electrode. So lead 1 is formed when you set your negative or reference electrode at the right arm, and you set your exploring electrode or your positive on the left arm. Similarly, lead 2 is the graphical description of the heart's activity when you make the positive or exploring electrode the left leg, and the negative or reference electrode is the right arm. And then finally, lead 3 can be discovered when your exploring electrode is the left lower leg and the reference electrode is the left arm. Because when you record the electrical activity, waves of depolarization heading towards the positive electrode give a positive deflection, you can kind of think of each of these leads as looking towards their positive electrode. So lead 1 looks this way towards the left. Lead 2 is looking down and kind of away. And lead 3 is looking in a downward direction, kind of towards the opposite leg. We say it's looking in that direction because the waves of depolarization heading towards the positive electrode create that positive deflection. That's the exploring electrodes. That's kind of the direction that we're looking out towards. To make this a little more clear as it relates to the heart, you can take these 3 faces of the triangle and collapse them kind of around an imaginary center where they cross right in the center of the heart. So if you take, here's lead, let me change my color here so you can see what I'm doing. Here's lead 1, which in this picture was up at the top. If you just bring this straight down, then it comes right through the heart. Similarly, 2, right, you move in, and here is lead 2, where it has the negative and the positive down below. So you've just collapsed these leads so that they cross right through the heart, as opposed to being right around it. And it can give you a better indication of what you're looking at as you look towards the heart. To describe what the view is, you put this circle around it. So you add a 360-degree circle. Let's give me a green pen so you guys can see a little better. And you set 0 degrees to be here at lead 1. So lead 1 is 0 degrees relative to the heart. Lead 2 is going to be 60 degrees off of that kind of origination of our circle, the 0. You can see the 90 degrees here, where lead 3 falls at 120 degrees. 100 degrees relative to the heart, if we make lead 1 0. So when we first went through our rhythm conversation, I said we're going to always use lead 2 as the electrode that we look at, which is often the lead that's used in a cardiac monitor in a hospital room, because the angle of this lead matches kind of the direction of the polarization that moves through the heart during a cardiac cycle. So because the wave of depolarization travels at about a 60-degree angle, you get the greatest positive deflection in lead 2. So the wave that shows up on your EKG will be the largest in lead 2 because it's in the exact same direction. Everything's moving kind of in the same direction that that lead is looking at. So this is how we have established lead 1, 2, and 3. From the orientation of the different reference and exploring electrodes relative to the arms and legs, and that allows us to kind of look at the heart from different angles, 0, 60, and 120. The problem is, with just these 3 individual views of the heart, this is not specific enough to accurately pinpoint a cardiac pathology. So from these initial 3 leads, we can add our augmented limb leads. And we call them augmented limb leads because it's augmented voltage added. If we added in augmented limb leads, these are different than our standard limb leads that have a positive and a negative electrode. Augmented limb leads are unipolar. So for augmented limb lead to the left, you would augment the voltage by adding a positive here, kind of to just sort of a standard negative. So you would add an augmented voltage up to the left. And this would give you augmented voltage left. If you added positive to the right, again to kind of a random negative ground, this would be a unipolar electrode going up and away towards the right. This is augmented voltage right. If you added positive down below, again compared to kind of a standard ground for a unipolar electrode, this would be augmented voltage towards the foot. So in this way, we've added 3 more angles to our view. So let's go back to the PowerPoint and look at this again. Here are our standard limb leads, our axial reference tracings. We have 1 at 0, 2 at 60, 3 at 120. If you look over here, you can see what they look like on the actual recording. And this is what we meant, or this is what I meant, by 2 having the largest deflection because it goes in the direction of the depolarization. You can see that the tracing is just bigger and more obvious because it follows the direction of the electrical activity of the heart. If we add in the augmented limb leads, you can see we have 3 new directions. So again, 0, we have set limb lead number 1 as 0, and we go around the circle this way. So the augmented left is actually at the -30, right, if you back away from the 0. The right is at -150, whereas the foot is directly down at 90 degrees. Keep in mind that the SA node is up here, and the waves of electrical activity kind of flow through the heart in this direction, in this downward direction. So the augmented right limb lead is actually going in the opposite direction of the depolarization wave that goes through the heart. So if you look over at the tracing, you can see that the waves on this lead are inverted. That is because it's recording in the opposite direction of all of the other leads. So it's expected to see these inverted curves on this augmented limb lead. If we look at this all together, this is a 6-limb lead EKG. And this provides us with multiple views of the heart. If you were interested in what was happening in the high lateral wall of the heart, you would want to look at augmented left lead and lead 1. That gives you the best kind of view of this section of the heart. The inferior wall of the left ventricle, if you want to look at the bottom, you have the best chance of seeing any abnormalities if you're looking at lead 2, 3, or augmented lead to the foot. AVR has your best chance of looking at the right atria. So you can see the benefit of multiple leads, because if you had some kind of a infarct up here in the high lateral wall, it could be missed in the recording that goes through to lead 2. This could look perfectly normal because the wave of depolarization might not have been affected by that area, whereas you're much more likely to pick it up at the electrodes that have a better view of that section of the heart. The next way we can look at the heart is doing precordial leads, or sometimes called chest leads. Your chest leads are going to look at the heart in the horizontal or transverse plane. Basically, it wraps around the heart to get different kind of quote-unquote images of the heart. So this picture up here on the left shows the arrangements of the electrode on the chest. And here we've kind of sliced the person and looking kind of straight down at them. And you can really see kind of the image of the heart that's seen by each one of these leads. So you put an electrode at each spot, V1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, kind of wrapping around the wall of the chest. And that gives you this kind of slice through the heart to get the image as you wrap around the heart. So V1 and 2 would give you the best view of the anterior wall of the heart and the septal region. V3 and 4 really give you the best look at that anterior wall of the heart. And then 5 and 6 are going to wrap around to get the lateral views. Note that these chest leads are in the horizontal plane. We kind of just take a slice through the heart to look at these different areas. There is no inferior view of the heart with the chest leads. You have to go to limb leads 2, 3, and AVF in order to really get the best view of the inferior heart. So when somebody has a 12-lead EKG, they are looking at the tracings from 6 limb leads and 6 chest leads. This provides different views of the same cardiac activity. Now, the tracing from each one of these leads is going to look different. We gave the example already of AVR and the fact that it's looking in the opposite direction, so the waves are inverted. So they may look different from each other, but they should be consistent in their timing and the representation that you would expect from this view. I like this picture because it truly gives you the idea of this three-dimensional view of the heart and how much valuable information we can get by being able to kind of have our exploring electrodes really kind of quote unquote looking at these different areas of the heart. So here's a full 12-lead EKG tracing. Again, time is represented kind of on the generic x-axis, and we have kind of three different columns representing that. So the leads that are stacked on top of each other are in time with one another. And by that I mean the R waves should all line up, all at the same exact moment. So there shouldn't be differences in the timing of the waves, even though the waves may look different. 12-lead EKGs are very helpful to verify an arrhythmia. So if you are in a patient's room and you are looking at a monitor and you can see a single lead, you might notice a possible arrhythmia, but you cannot diagnose an arrhythmia with a single lead. So when you have the full 12-lead EKG in front of you, if you see a rhythm abnormality in one lead, but it's not in any of the other leads, this is an artifact. You wouldn't expect it in only one. If you see an arrhythmia in multiple leads, that is a true arrhythmia. So the reason that somebody might get a 12-lead EKG, the last one we just mentioned, its primary use is to verify arrhythmias. It can be used to detect axis deviations of the heart. For this, they would look at kind of the sum total of the heart's electrical activity, and if it deviates from normal, it can represent an altered axis. So a heart could be more vertical or more horizontal, and that can be detected in the EKG. This can be used to detect cardiac hypertrophy. You do not have to, let me see what I have in your notes for you guys on this. I gave you two examples. Don't go too heavy into this. Like I said, we are not going to be interpreting this, but I think it's really important that you appreciate that this is visible by EKG, even if I'm not expecting you to be able to see it in the EKG recording. So if you have atrial hypertrophy, you can see that evidenced in changes in different leads, and ventricular hypertrophy, that one should make sense that you might get a larger than normal QRS complex, since the QRS complex represents the ventricular activity. And so if it's really big, it's going to get more of a signal all the way to the skin and get recorded as a bigger QRS.